Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Insane Maniac in a 15-minute game on leechess.org. Insane Maniac opens with d4, and I'll play d5 in reply. So you might be wondering, John, why are you playing this game on Leech Chess right now? Don't you usually play your 15-minute games on ICC? And you would be right, I do. I was just looking for a game there about half an hour ago on ICC, and unfortunately there's a player who has a absurd record in the 15-minute pool right now. It's like 56-1 or something. And in looking at this guy's stats and also looking at his games, it's entirely clear to me he's cheating, and he hasn't been banned yet. And he's been doing this for the past 2 or 3 days. He's about 1800, 1900 blitz on there, but his standard rating is through the roof. And just some simple checking, cross-referencing his games with the engine, and also watching him play a game led me to the determination that this player is most definitely cheating, not Insane Maniac, the guy I'm talking about on ICC. And I knew that if I entered the pool, I was very likely going to play him because we were on at the same time and I was looking for a game. And I thought, you know what, I don't really want to play a engine masquerading as a human. So I've come to Leechess to play this game. Hope you guys don't mind. So we have a Slav in effect. Might play a Slav or Semi-Slav. Oh, he says hello. I'll just say hi back to him. Wish him good luck. Yeah, let's go into a Semi-Slav. So I'll play e6. Bishop g5 is the most aggressive move against this line. White can also opt for e3. That's actually the most popular move, simply defending the pawn on c4. This is one nice feature of Leechess for those who don't watch my other videos I record on Leechess. You can draw arrows and circle stuff during a game. That's a nice bonus. Yep, e3. I'll play knight bd7. So staying flexible. So if white commits this bishop to, say, d3, like then I'll take on c4. This is what will happen. Queen c2 is the anti-Moran variation. Bishop d3 is the Miran variation. Okay, so queen c2 is played. I'll play bishop d6. This is a line that I lost to against Computer Forum Possible on chess.com. If you go and look for my most recent game against Computer Forum Possible. So b3. So white eschews some of the main lines of the anti-Moran with bishop d3 and castles, and instead goes for a setup involving a fianchetto of the dark square bishop. Usually black wants to remedy this by playing for a quick e5. I think I should castle first. Just trying to remember my theory, whether it's e5 immediately or castles. I'm fairly certain it's castles, so let's do that. And then after bishop b2, I can go for kind of a slower game with b6, or I can do that e5 move. I'm leaning a bit towards e5 because I know this to be the correct way to handle this line. b6 is also entirely playable, though. b6, bishop b7, and look for a way to open the position later. But you know what? I'm going to stick to the book and play e5. In playing this move, I am accepting the possibility of an isolated pawn. So if, for instance, c takes d5, c takes d5, and then d takes e5, knight takes e5, I will have an isolated d pawn. But black usually makes up for this in the activity department. I get good play for my pieces. You notice that white's queen is on the c-file, so if I move my light square bishop and I can play a rook to c8, I can quickly align with that. Yeah, bishop e2 is reasonable. Now, if I take on f3 and they take with the bishop, can I play d4? I seem to recall a game, Korchnoi versus Beliavsky, where either this exact position or a position very similar to this arose. I think the bishop might have been on c1, though, in that case. So let me check this, because when you have an isolated pawn, so this isolated d pawn, oftentimes your best bet is to try to get rid of it at an opportune time in an effort to open lines. So that's what I'm thinking about. So knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, d4, e takes d4, rook e8 check. Let's say bishop e2. I could play something like queen c7 there, or maybe bishop g4. With the bishop on b2, white's a bit better protected on c3, is the only thing. So knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, d4, e takes d4, rook check. There's also knight e2 as a blocking move. Yeah, I don't think I should risk it when they have their bishop out here already. I think that Korchnoi-Belyavsky game was slightly different. So therefore, I'm thinking about bishop e6 with a quick rook c8 in mind. Bishop g4 also. Let's say bishop e6 castles, rook c8. Maybe they play knight d4. But then I can play knight e4 and attack their pin knight. Okay, so let's just do this. We looked at a couple lines, especially lines involving d4. And they didn't appear to be working for black, so we'll just play our bishop out. The bishop could be better. I mean, you notice it's performing a defensive function right now. Just keep an eye on the d5 pawn, but I'm happy. I have a solid position. I also don't play IQP positions, isolated queen's pawn positions, too often. That is, playing with the IQP. I'm usually playing against it. So this is good practice. Yeah, about the ICC situation earlier, I hate to even bring that up, but I know people, viewers might be wondering why I'm not playing on there. And it's just this particular case, like this one player on ICC in the 15-minute pool who, like I said, I'm completely convinced they're cheating, but if I take the time to report them, which I will do, nothing will happen for a while. And I wanted to play a game today, and that player was in there in the pool just kind of waiting. So, like I said, if I played them, it was very likely I was just going to be losing to an engine, and that's no fun. Unless you're knowingly playing an engine. In that case, it's okay. So, I don't know. I think ICC needs to rethink their anti-cheating measures a bit. They're a little outdated. They manually review cheaters, and they need a better system to detect them. I know some other sites manually review them, but they tend to be a lot faster. ICC is pretty slow. Okay, rook c8, or rook c1 rather. So white overprotects this knight. Now I'm thinking knight e4 is a good option. And with knight e4, I have in mind if they try to escape the d-file pressure, like say knight e4, queen b1, I can take on f3 and then play knight d2, and I would be forking the queen on b1 and say the rook on f1. So this move looks like the way to go. I think on knight e4 they'd be best off playing queen to d1, I believe. Yeah, let's go for that. So if queen d1, what to play in that case? And I could trade on c3, but in general, when you have the isolated queen's pawn, you want to be very judicious about the exchanges you make, because the more exchanges, the more pieces that come off the board, there's a tendency for this pawn to become weaker. So I have to be aware of that. I'll try not to draw too many arrows and such too, by the way. I think it's actually detrimental for the arrows to be drawn in some cases because it gives you a crutch for your calculation. It's better to try to calculate it on your own as much as possible. So they play rook fd1, kind of ignoring the attack on c3. So moves that just jump out at me right now are queen a5, attacking the knight again. Knight takes f3 check. Knight takes f3, bishop takes f3. I almost have bishop takes h2, king takes h2, queen h4 check in that case. They do run away with king g1. And their queen will be defending f2, so I can't combine an attack on f2 with my queen and knight. Queen a5 just looks like a good idea. Because their queen is going to be feeling the heat pretty soon. And if knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and I just add another attacker to c3 instantly. Yeah, let's go queen a5. Knight takes f3, and the pressure on h2 was a temptation as well, but I think c3 is where the money's at. That's where I really want to be focusing. So I have 1, 2, 3 attackers on that knight on c3, and they have currently 3 defenders, queen, bishop, and rook. So if I add one extra ingredient, like say a timely bishop b4, then this could collapse like a house of cards for white. Thing is, at the moment I need my bishop on d6 to protect e5, but say in the event of a trade on f3, they could take back with their bishop hitting the knight, but if I can free this bishop up, then that pressure on c3 may be unbearable. My Lichess standard rating is 1773, or classical rating on here it's called. Not in line with my other ratings. You see I get stronger as the time control grows lesser and lesser. But really, I just haven't played many games. I've only played one other classical game on this site. 99% of my games are in bullet. Major issue for white is that they can't play queen b1, because queen b1 just loses a piece on c3. And the queen can't run to d2 or d3 because they're covered by my knights. So it makes sense that InsaneManiac is pausing here. I have a feeling the previous move was a mistake, though. I think they've already put themselves in a tough spot by playing rook fd1. That's an example of an autopilot move, a move that looks normal and natural, bringing a rook to an open file, but after one more move, suddenly, despite white's logically placed pieces, they're under pressure. So I think he needed to deal with that c-file pressure on the previous move and not this move. They could try a3, looking to play b4 and kick my queen out. Thing about that, though, is that pawn on a3 is weak. So say a3, maybe knight takes f3 check, bishop takes f3, let's say knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, queen takes a3, and I think I'm just bagging a pawn. d5 might be weak at the end of that line. So a3, knight takes f3 check, bishop takes f3. Let's say knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, queen takes a3, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5. I have something like bishop b4 there at the end, perhaps. Rook to d3. I sense white might be holding on. Barely. That's really close. You know, another option I might have, maybe I even had it on the previous move, is knight to g4. So having both these knights attacking f2, especially since the rook has abandoned that square, that could be an interesting line. That might be a way to free up the dark square bishop too. So if I play knight g4, I'm playing it with tempo on the f2 pawn. Maybe that gives me license to move the dark square bishop. So they're just capturing. So if I take, why would you willingly give me another attacker on c3? Are they going to play rook to d3? So rook to d3. So not only is there an alignment issue on the c-file, but now this diagonal, the b1 h7 diagonal, starts to present itself as a method of play for me, or an avenue for play. Maybe bishop f5, lining up my light square bishop with that rook and the queen. Bishop f5 leaves d5 unguarded, so bishop f5, rook takes d5. Is that playable for white? Queen takes d5, knight takes d5, rook takes c2, rook takes c2. That's close. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time on this move because it looks like I should have something. I do see a line that wins a pawn. So let's say I play knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, rook takes c3, rook takes c3, queen takes c3. We have queen takes a2 at the end. And we're actually hitting that bishop on e2 with that. So that is a possibility, but I feel like there should be more. I could play b5 looking to play b4. If b5, I think very likely they'll play a3. I could play a move like rook c7 or rook c6 and try to double up on the next move. So if rook c6, let's say f3, trying to kick that knight away. Knight takes c3, bishop takes c3. We're kind of back where we started. Yeah, a lot of these lines look better for me, but I don't see something truly devastating. Bishop f5 was my first instinct. I'm just not certain about rook takes d5. What if bishop f5, rook takes d5, knight takes c3? Could that work? Bishop f5, rook takes d5, knight takes c3, because then my bishop is opened up on their queen. So knight takes c3, rook takes a5, bishop takes c2. There's so many pieces hanging in that position for both sides. Let me check that line one more time. So bishop f5, rook takes d5, knight takes c3, rook takes a5, rook takes a5, bishop takes c2. If they play bishop takes c3, I have bishop takes c3 hitting their rook, so I win a piece in that line. If rook takes c2, I have knight takes e2 check, rook takes e2, and then bishop takes b2 at the end. And they can't take me back because I made them on c1. Wow. Okay, so bishop f5, rook takes d5, queen takes d5. Or no, I'm getting myself confused, sorry. Bishop f5, rook takes d5, knight takes c3. Rook takes a5, bishop takes c2, and then both of these pieces are hanging, but I don't think they can favorably take either one. All right, I'm going to try it. There's a lot of stuff going on in that line, but I'm going to trust my calculations and see. I didn't have time to check every single variation. I mean, I would have preferred to have more of an opportunity to dot my I's and cross my T's, if you will. I don't see too many other options other than rook takes d5. So yeah, it makes sense that they're going for this. So this was the move I was looking at. Knight takes, bishop takes c2. Okay, let's do it. So opening up the bishop on the queen. So after rook takes a5, bishop takes c2, my feeling is that I should be coming out a piece ahead. There's knight takes e2 check, but they take with their queen, so that won't do. So I got to take here. Right now, as it stands, I'm up a piece. I have 3 minor pieces, they have 2. And if they take on c3, I take with the bishop and I attack that, right? So, yeah, they're doing this line, and I saw this variation. Now at the end of this, I can take on b2 is the thing. And they can't recapture because of rook c1 mate. So that piece of calculation worked out. He moved way too fast there, I think. I mean, I know we're getting low on time. It's approaching a blitz game, but I think after bishop f5, white should have spent more time, unless they were absolutely certain about this line they're venturing into, but they're down a piece, so I don't know how they could be certain about that. Okay, so I think they're going to win this pawn, but I'll have a piece for 2 pawns. So, got to move this bishop. Bishop c3, maybe followed by b5. That looks pretty good. Yeah, let's do that. Kind of restrict this rook by playing this way as well. If I can get the pawn up to b4 and maybe nail this pawn too, its location on a2. So this should be a technical win for black. I probably don't want to take this pawn. It'd be harder to win that way, so let's just push. I know they have a pass pawn now, but my bishop is doing a great job just kind of standing sentry here, and b3 is very weak. Like, if in the future I can go something like this and go take that pawn, that would be excellent. Okay, so let's occupy the open file. They could try rook a2 and maybe get behind that pawn. e4 they're going to play. Okay. Well, now I have bishop d4 as an option to attack this rook should I ever need that. I think this should be working pretty well. So rook down, again, just looking to go after that b pawn. They could try rook e3 to f3 to try to attack this pawn, but I can always defend that. Also, rook e3, there is bishop d4, although they have rook d7 kind of pinning me along the d file. Yeah, I don't think e4 helped white much. e5, e6 isn't going to bother me. They could try something with their a pawn, but it's too little too late. Yeah, white just resigned. Okay, so we're going to go and look at the analysis in a second, because you can do that on Lichess. They've actually introduced a new analysis function too that's pretty helpful. But before we do that, let's just kind of highlight some key points. So I was breaking in the center with e5, accepting an isolated pawn, but black gets open lines and activity. You just have to be aware of the dynamics of a isolated pawn situation. You know, as white, they're trying to blockade the d4 square, the square right in front of the isolated pawn. They don't mind exchanges. They probably won't go out of their way to execute exchanges before their castle, but that's kind of the game plan for them. Exchange down, keep the pawn blockaded, try to prove that it's a weakness. And for black, I need to use my activity, and I was glad to be able to pose problems to white on the c file, especially in regards to that knight on c3 with knight e4. So I think this moment was critical. I think white has to flee the c file right away. I have a feeling queen d1 is the best move. Because if queen b1, there's knight takes f3 followed by knight d2. So I think rook fd1 was too routine from InsaneManiac, and after I get queen a5 in, it's already very difficult. I'll be curious what the engine thinks about bishop f5, whether that was justified. It seemed like I got to the heart of these lines. They are complicated. I mean, there's a lot of stuff hanging. All 3 of my minor pieces are hanging right now, if you notice. White can take any one of them. But that's the beauty of having many hanging pieces, right? Your opponent can only take them one at a time. So they took here, but after take here and bishop takes b2, white can't recapture because of the back rank threat. So meanwhile, if bishop takes c3, there's bishop takes c3 back, hitting the rook, and I'll be able to save this bishop. Okay, so let's go to the analysis board. So this is kind of a cool graphical depiction of the game down here. You guys can't really see it. It's down in this range, but it basically gives you a graph of the game. And yeah, it says I played pretty well. I had 0 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, 0 blunders, with an average centi-pawn loss of 11. My opponent had 1 inaccuracy, 2 mistakes, 0 blunders, 19 average centi-pawn loss. So you guys can see this part up here. And this is the evaluation depicted move to move. Okay, so things were pretty level. Yeah, up through move 14. Okay, so kind of like I suspected, queen d1 is what the computer thinks white needs to do here. Queen d1 fleeing the c file, otherwise that heat coming down on the knight on c3 is probably too much. Yeah, great example of an autopilot move. Not to harp on this moment, but rook fd1, it's a move that just looks so obvious, but it isn't in line with the demands of the position. White's playing a general move when they need something quite concrete, because I already have threats. So yeah, queen d1. And again, queen b1, just to depict this line, knight takes f3 check, bishop takes, knight d2, fork. So rook fd1, I played queen a5. The computer doesn't like that move. It actually says go bishop f5 immediately. And it gives the line rook to d2. Huh. I would say that's pretty bad if white has to play rook d2 here, just offering a rook. Bishop b4, I can increase the heat on c3. Here, take. This is kind of similar to the game. Wow, and I can even play rook f takes d8. Huh. So white's queen is under attack. If queen takes f5, knight takes e2, and black is going to win a ton of material. That's a complicated line. But it kind of shows the repeating themes, like this bishop f5 move hitting the queen when the queen has nowhere to run and can't escape the diagonal. So on queen a5, they could have saved themselves with the move knight to d2. Knight to d2, looking to exchange this knight. Oh, before I go on, one other move I was thinking of was knight to g4. I mentioned this after the fact. Yeah, computer likes this, so it gives me about a 1-point advantage. It says white's best bet is just to move back. Yeah, because that move was tempting, trying to go and attack f2. So queen a5, take, rook d3. Yeah. So white had a very narrow window to save himself. Knight d2, that might be an only move. Here, rook d3, bishop f5, it likes it. Okay. I had a little bit of a think here, just trying to work out those complications. Take here, knight takes c3, yep, likes this as well. Yeah, seems like everything works out for black. So I'm glad I was able to calculate that line. Yeah, probably white can play a bit better around here. I know they didn't last too many moves after they lost the bishop, but some of these moves seem disconnected, like a4 followed by king g2 and e4. I mean, e4 doesn't do anything for white. But the real story of this game was the way in which white dealt with the c-file pressure, because that was their shortcoming in this one. I think they need to take evasive action earlier, and rook fd1 is too routine. Okay, well, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about 15-minute on Lead Chess. Don't know if I'll make this a regular thing, but in light of the ICC situation, I figured I might as well just play on here tonight. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.